Hi, this is DuckNoises here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the character of Majora. So, something that always struck me as odd is how people intend to interpret Majora as an evil character, and that Majora is, like, the pinnacle of evil. To be honest, but I never really interpreted Skull Kid nor Majora as manifestations of evil, but really manifestations of chaos. Skull Kid is just your run-of-the-mill, misunderstood, possessed child. Happens every day. I'd hardly consider Skull Kid evil, but Majora doesn't really have a sinister goal or desire, which is almost a prerequisite of every archetypal villain ever. However, you could argue that this makes Majora special, but I wouldn't say it makes Majora more evil necessarily. If you look at your classical villains, let's take Ganondorf, just because we can. He's kind of like Cassius from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. But Majora, well, Ganondorf as an end to his malicious actions. He wants power, whereas Majora seems to have none. He doesn't have a goal. We never hear much at all about Majora, really. We just hear the occasional rambling about destruction, and Majora's goals are never really defined. I think this is that it's Majora's lack of intentions that make him, her, or it, not as evil as most villains. The way in one achieves their goals is what determines them to be ethically good or evil. By achieving your goal through righteous methods, you are good. Conversely, if you achieve your goals through wrong methods, you are evil. Majora has no goals nor plan. As such, I don't think we can properly evaluate Majora as a villain. A lot of the things learned about the antagonist in Majora's Mask are more about Skull Kid than Majora, and I think that was the proper way to go with the game. Skull Kid represented the misunderstood, lonely child reaching out at a desperate plea for attention, whose voice ultimately became corrupted by the voice of chaos. I don't really perceive Majora as an individual, but rather a physical manifestation of chaos, whose physical form was only really needed for the final boss battle. I see Majora's primary role as a symbolic one, that occasional lapse in judgment where we let our reason slip and let our periodic frustration seize control. To me, that's what Majora is. That's where we have to make the distinction between different kinds of villainy. We have to make the distinction between amoral and immoral. Amoral is lacking the very understanding of morality, the lack of comprehension for what it means to be good or to be bad. Majora is malicious because Majora finds pleasure in it. Were Majora able to comprehend the gravity of their actions or understand people's reactions, they might consider stopping. Now, it's the lack of this emotional recognition that makes Majora an amoral character, or even a symbol, and I hesitate to view Majora as an entity of evil as some people do. So let's take Ganondorf, on the other hand. He's immoral. He knows what he's doing, and he knows that it's wrong. He understands the gravity and the effect of his actions, and he continues to do evil despite being persuaded to stop. He's a reprobate, really, and that word can refer to both immoral and amoral, but in this case I'm referring to immoral. He acknowledges the suffering of others, yet he doesn't do anything to stop it because it doesn't help him in any way. Ganondorf, in addition to being immoral, is also pragmatic, which results in him being duplicitous, which I think augments his level of evil in a more traditional way. I'm going to go back to Cassius here and use that. It's quite fitting that he's both pragmatic and immoral, which are very standard qualities of a dictator as he is. It comes down to what you think is more evil: one who is duplicitous and cognizant of their evil, utilizing deceit, treachery, and cruelty to meet their goals, or one who doesn't understand the notions of cruelty and mercy, guilt, and innocence, and will continue to act in their lack of judgment, akin to the emotional level of a small child, which is like Majora. Now, I think of amorality as more of a tragic flaw. Now let's note a dictionary's distinction between the terms evil, amoral, and immoral. It says evil is an adjective. It is morally wrong or bad, immoral, or due to actual or imputed bad conduct or character, e.g. an evil reputation. It defines amoral as not involving questions of right or wrong, without moral quality, neither moral nor immoral, or having no moral standards, restraints, or principles, unaware of or indifferent to questions of right or wrong, a completely amoral person. And immoral is violating moral principles, not conforming to the patterns of conduct usually accepted or established as consistent with principles of personal and social ethics. So, the terms defining amoral don't contain as heavy an implication of evil as seen in immoral. This immoral was actually in the definition of evil. Now, the inability to recognize whether or not one is doing wrong is likely the cause of wrongdoings for Majora. Majora merely acts and doesn't act with the intent of right or wrong. evil is more of a byproduct of Majora's actions, whereas its intent is just the action itself. This is why I intend to interpret Majora as a force of chaos rather than evil. And I think Majora acts as a symbol of chaos because Majora's mask, the object itself, is symbolic of corruption through power, which strives to replace order with disorder. Now, the game Majora's Mask often referred to things in a matter of order or disorder rather than good and evil. Take Clock Town, for example. Clocks are symbolic of structure and organization and schedules. Now, Clock Town as a whole is a meticulous automaton, and the events of the game are structured and scheduled with the emphasis of time in mind. However, the game throws structure out of the window, at least in the story, causing Clock Town to act in disarray. The game's narrative takes the form of order versus disorder, hence the final song you play, Oath to Order. The whole metaphor of innocence and amorality is really enforced at the end of the game when you speak to the children on the moon. One of them asks, "The right thing, what is it?" And I find that that's a demonstration of a lack of understanding of moral conventions, which is amorality. The moon children, and Majora, are trapped in the surreal world on top of the moon, with no recognition of right or wrong. All they want to do is play. They can't interpret the moral status of what or how they play, and whatever they do is for their amusement. They're isolated from reality and therefore from societal conventions, so the notion of morality and its impact is almost entirely absent from their thought. Another one of the moon children mentions, "I wonder, if you do the right thing, does it really make everybody happy?" So I think that the absence of right and wrong in the characters is what makes Majora's Mask a dark game. It all takes place in between shades of grey. I believe Majora, the character, follows this pattern, and that's why I think Majora isn't really evil. Majora is amoral, and I think this is something that makes Majora's Mask different from other Zelda games. It shows how morality and order fade away in the face of adversity, being Majora. Rather than focusing on physical and moral conflict like most Zelda games, it focuses on the emotional tempest in the characters that is occasionally forgotten. The emotional struggle is reflected in the people of Termina, whereas Majora and the Moon Children reflect the opposite end of the spectrum, where actions supersede emotions, contrasting the norm. So I'm just going to conclude with saying that rather than Majora being an embodiment of evil, I feel that Majora is a symbol of the chaos that ensues from the inability to recognize morality itself. And that's all I'm going to say for today. Thank you.